That particular Thursday held no promise of anything remarkable happening. It was one of those ordinary weekdays where routine takes precedence over excitement, and you simply move through the familiar motions of existence. My name is Marcus. I'm 31 years old, and I occupy a modest apartment in the quieter section of the city. Life has settled into a predictable rhythm. I work as a warehouse supervisor for a regional distribution center, maintain casual friendships with a few colleagues, and spend considerable time in solitary pursuits that don't demand much from me. My mother, Carol, presents a stark contrast to my reserved nature. At 53, she thrives in her role as an administrative coordinator and has cultivated an extensive social network. Her circle includes numerous acquaintances, many of whom fall somewhere between my age and hers. Among her dearest companions is Sophia, a woman of 37 who shares my mother's enthusiasm for interpersonal connections. Their friendship began during a company training seminar, and they discovered an immediate rapport that has endured for several years. Sophia has been a familiar presence in our lives for quite some time. Our interactions have always remained cordial and uncomplicated. She possesses an engaging personality, carries herself with natural grace, and has never seemed uncomfortable during her frequent visits to our home. Her presence at family gatherings and casual dinners became as routine as any other aspect of our weekly schedule. On this unremarkable evening, my mother had extended her usual invitation for Sophia to join us for our weekly meal. The three of us gathered around the dining table, engaging in our customary exchange of workplace anecdotes, neighborhood gossip, and shared reminiscences. The atmosphere remained light and familiar, flowing with the easy rhythm of people who have grown comfortable in each other's company. Nothing about the evening suggested it would deviate from our established pattern, at least not until I made that carelessly thoughtless remark. Our conversation had drifted toward the topic of romantic relationships, as these discussions inevitably do when people gather for extended periods. I found myself contributing sporadically to the dialogue, offering occasional observations without paying particular attention to the direction of our talk. My mother had been lamenting the challenges of finding someone capable of maintaining equilibrium between professional responsibilities and personal fulfillment. Without considering the implications, I interjected with what I intended as harmless humor. Honestly, Sophia, I said with casual confidence, you represent everything I should be seeking in a partner. You've achieved balance in your life, possess genuine wit, and demonstrate remarkable capability in managing complexity. You're precisely the type of woman I ought to be pursuing seriously. The comment was intended purely for comedic effect, a light-hearted observation designed to elicit laughter and move our conversation forward. However, the moment those words left my mouth, I detected a subtle but unmistakable shift in Sophia's demeanor. Rather than responding with the anticipated amusement, she became momentarily still, her gaze focusing intently on mine. My mother continued speaking, apparently unaware of any change in atmosphere, but Sophia remained unusually quiet for an extended period. I assumed she felt embarrassed by my jest, and quickly redirected our discussion toward safer territory. Yet something suggested this moment would prove more memorable than I initially anticipated. Later that evening, Sophia lingered beyond her typical departure time. Instead of leaving promptly, as she usually did, she remained in our living room after my mother had retired for the night. I was occupied with clearing the dinner dishes when I heard her voice behind me. "Did you mean what you said earlier?" she inquired, her tone carrying unexpected seriousness. I turned around, genuinely puzzled by her question. "Mean what specifically?" "That comment about you being ideal for me?" I laughed, attempting to dismiss the moment. "Come on, Sophia, that was obviously meant in jest. Surely you understood I wasn't being literal." She didn't appear convinced by my explanation. Her smile seemed different, somehow less casual than usual, carrying implications I couldn't quite decipher. "Perhaps you should consider the possibility more seriously," she said softly. "It might not be such an unreasonable idea, after all." My pulse quickened unexpectedly. I couldn't determine whether she was maintaining the playful tone or expressing genuine sentiment. Uncertain how to respond appropriately, I mumbled something about the lateness of the hour and my need for rest. Deep within, however, I couldn't dismiss the sensation that something fundamental had shifted between us. At the time, I failed to comprehend that even the most casual observations can sometimes trigger unforeseen consequences. The following days carried an unusual quality, not overtly different, but somehow altered beneath the surface. Sophia and I weren't suddenly behaving like romantic partners, yet an undeniable tension had emerged between us. I couldn't identify it precisely, but every subsequent encounter felt charged with unspoken meaning. I began noticing details that had previously escaped my attention. A few days after our strange conversation, my mother again invited Sophia for dinner. I expected another routine evening, but the atmosphere felt distinctly different. Sophia seemed more attentive toward me, not in a merely friendly manner, but with an intensity that made me feel scrutinized. Our usual comfortable exchanges now seemed weighted with hidden significance. During dinner, my mother excused herself to handle a telephone call in another room, leaving Sophia and me alone briefly. I attempted to maintain casual conversation, hoping to preserve normalcy, but Sophia had different intentions. "So, Marcus," she began, her voice softer than usual, "are you currently involved with anyone romantically? I'm curious, especially after your comment the other evening." I froze momentarily, unsure of her direction. The memory of my joke returned forcefully, and I felt suddenly self-conscious about my response. "Not really," I replied, avoiding direct eye contact. "I'm simply not actively seeking anything serious at the moment." She nodded thoughtfully, but her attention never wavered from me. There was an intensity in her observation that I hadn't experienced before. "I find it difficult to understand why you remain unattached," she said with what seemed like excessive sincerity. "You possess admirable qualities: humor, intelligence, and refreshing authenticity. You have considerable potential that someone should appreciate." I struggled to formulate an appropriate response. This was Sophia, my mother's trusted friend, engaging in conversations we'd never previously shared. The compliment made me uncomfortable, yet I couldn't deny that something about her was beginning to feel fundamentally different. The remainder of the evening passed without further awkward moments, but the underlying tension persisted. I found myself replaying our exchange repeatedly, questioning Sophia's motivations. Was she still engaging in playful banter, or had her words carried deeper meaning? The following day brought unexpected preoccupation with thoughts of Sophia. I couldn't prevent myself from imagining how circumstances might differ if we existed outside the complicated dynamic of my mother's friendship. I immediately suppressed these thoughts, reminding myself how absurd the situation had become. She was older, my mother's close companion. Nothing could reasonably develop from this attraction. Yet something continued to disturb my peace of mind, and during our next encounter, I couldn't ignore its presence. A few days later, on a Saturday afternoon, I encountered Sophia again unexpectedly. My mother was absent, and Sophia had come to deliver something she'd promised to bring. I was relaxing on the couch, half watching television, when she knocked and entered. "Hello, Marcus," she said casually, though I detected a particular warmth in her voice I hadn't noticed previously. "I wanted to give this to your mother. Is she available?" "She's out running errands," I informed her, "but you're welcome to stay for a while." We began chatting again, initially about inconsequential matters, but our conversation gradually deepened. We discussed our favorite literature, destinations we hoped to visit, and the challenges of navigating adult responsibilities. Nothing too personal, yet more substantial than our usual exchanges. She seemed genuinely interested in everything I shared, and for the first time, I felt she wasn't merely being polite. At some point, Sophia moved closer to where I was sitting. "You know," she said, her voice dropping to almost a whisper, "I've been thinking about your comment from the other evening. You really meant it, didn't you?" I froze again, my heart beginning to race. "I didn't expect you to take me seriously," I said, attempting to laugh off the moment, but humor was absent from my voice. "It was just a joke, Sophia." This time she didn't smile. Instead, she reached out and placed her hand gently over mine. The contact wasn't forceful, merely tender, but it sent an electric shock through my system. "I don't believe you were joking," she said quietly. "You might not realize it, but you express sincere thoughts when you make comments like that. And I think you're correct. I am perfect for you." I didn't know how to respond. My mind raced while I experienced a strange mixture of confusion and excitement. Part of me wanted to laugh and tell her to stop, but another part wanted to explore where this might lead. I pulled my hand away suddenly, feeling overwhelmed by the heat of the moment. "Sophia, This isn't something we should be discussing. I don't even understand what's happening right now. I never intended to mislead you. She smiled. Again, this time more gently. I think you're the one who's confused, Marcus. You have feelings for me too, I can see it. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words emerged. I wasn't certain if I felt scared, excited, or simply overwhelmed. Was I genuinely developing feelings for her, or was this merely a bizarre, twisted situation I couldn't navigate? Either way, everything was becoming far too complicated. Yet I couldn't deny it, something real existed between us, and I had no idea how to handle it. The days following that conversation with Sophia blurred together in my memory. My mind constantly raced, replaying everything she'd said, attempting to make sense of it all. Was this merely an awkward phase where she'd misinterpreted my joke, or was there genuine substance to explore? I kept telling myself it couldn't be. The latter. Sophia was my mother's friend, for heaven's sake. There were clear boundaries that shouldn't be crossed. However, the more I contemplated our situation, the more I realized something had fundamentally changed between us. Every time our paths crossed, I couldn't ignore the energy that existed between us. It wasn't obvious, but it was undeniably present. Sophia seemed to appear everywhere, materializing unexpectedly at my apartment, often when my mother was absent. Initially, I attributed this to coincidence, but eventually, I began wondering if she was deliberately seeking opportunities for private moments between us. One afternoon, while I was organizing items in the kitchen, I heard knocking at the door. My mother was out again, and I wasn't expecting visitors. When I opened the door, Sophia stood there looking as casual as ever, but there was newfound confidence in her expression. "Hey, Marcus," she said, stepping inside without waiting for invitation. "I brought those documents your mother requested. I thought we could chat while she's away." "Sure," I said, trying to maintain normalcy, but normal was far from what the situation felt like. Strange tension hung in the air between us. I led her to the living room and sat down, feeling my palms growing slightly damp. We talked for a while, the usual friendly conversation initially, but then Sophia shifted the direction of our discussion. She was no longer simply talking about random topics. It felt like she was drawing closer to me both physically and emotionally. "You know," she said, her voice lowering, "I've been thinking about you frequently lately. About that evening, about what you said. You were right in many ways. I think we both felt something significant." I swallowed hard, uncertain how to respond. Was this really happening? Was I being drawn into something I had no business being involved in? I wanted to tell her to stop, to remind her of who she was, my mother's friend, someone who was supposed to be off limits, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I simply nodded, feeling a strange mixture of guilt and curiosity. "You don't have to say anything," Sophia continued, her eyes locked on mine. "But I think we both know something's changed. And I'm not the type to ignore significant developments." I shifted uncomfortably in my seat, trying to maintain my composure. "Sophia, I don't know what you want from me. I didn't mean anything by that joke. I was just being foolish." "It was a stupid thing to say," she smiled, but it wasn't the friendly, reassuring smile I was accustomed to. There was a certain knowing look in her eyes, something deeper and more complex. "Maybe it wasn't so stupid," she said quietly. "Maybe it was exactly what I needed to hear." Before I could respond, she stood up and walked over to where I was sitting, her movements slow and deliberate. My heart started racing as she approached. "Marcus," she said softly, "I've spent enough time with you to know you're a genuinely good man. You deserve someone who recognizes that, someone who isn't afraid to admit what they feel." Then she did something that completely caught me off guard. She reached down and gently placed her hand on my cheek. Her touch was warm, and I could feel the pulse of my heart in my throat. I didn't know how to react. I wanted to pull away, to remove her hand, but something kept me frozen in place. She was right, we both felt something, but this wasn't supposed to happen. This wasn't how things were meant to be. "Please," Alice whispered, "don't pull away. I'm not asking for anything you're not ready for. I just think we owe it to ourselves to see where this goes." I pulled back, standing up quickly, my mind in chaos. "I don't think we should be doing this," I said, almost choking on the words. "This is wrong, Sophia. My mom, this isn't something we can just ignore." She didn't back off though. Instead, she stepped closer, her voice low. "We're both adults. We don't have to tell anyone. I won't tell your mother, and you don't have to tell anyone either. But I think we both want this. don't you? I stood there, heart pounding, fighting an internal battle. This was wrong, this couldn't be happening, but at the same time, a part of me didn't want it to stop. It felt like I was standing at a crossroads, torn between two different paths, one that was safe and familiar, and one that promised something exciting, something forbidden. I didn't answer her right away. The silence hung between us, thick and heavy, and in that moment, I knew that things were about to become a whole lot more complicated. The next few days were a whirlwind, but I couldn't stop thinking about Sophia, about the way she had looked at me, the way her hand had felt on my cheek, the way she had made me feel like something had shifted between us, something that couldn't be easily undone. I didn't know if I was scared or just overwhelmed, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't keep pretending like nothing had happened. I tried to act normal, to push thoughts of Sophia to the back of my mind. I went to work, hung out with friends, followed my usual routines, but every time I found myself alone, my mind wandered back to her. What was going on between us? Was this just a temporary lapse in judgment, or was there something deeper? It didn't help that Sophia kept reaching out to me. She'd text me casually, asking about my day, telling me about something interesting that happened at work, just little things. But I could feel the weight behind each message, like there was unspoken tension lingering beneath the surface. Every time she reached out, it felt like she was trying to pull me back in, trying to keep the connection alive. But I didn't know what to do. One evening, about a week after that conversation, Sophia texted me asking if I wanted to grab a drink. I hesitated. I knew what she was doing, but at the same time, I couldn't deny that I was intrigued. I told myself it would just be a casual hangout, that I could keep things light and figure out where my head was at. When I met her at the bar, it was like stepping into a different world. There was a spark in the air between us, something that felt electric. She looked stunning more than usual in a way that made my heart skip a beat. We sat down at a table in the corner, and she smiled at me, her eyes sparkling in a way that made it hard to focus on anything else. "You look great tonight, Marcus," she said, and I could hear the sincerity in her voice. "I'm glad you agreed to meet up." I wasn't sure how to approach this. I wasn't sure how to respond. I was still feeling the weight of the previous week's conversation, but I couldn't help but feel a little flattered. She was clearly making an effort to be close to me, and despite everything, I liked it. It felt nice to be seen in that way. We ordered drinks and started talking casual stuff at first, just small talk, but soon the conversation shifted, and Sophia began asking more personal questions. It wasn't anything too intrusive, but it was enough to make me feel exposed, like she was trying to get to know me in a way that felt more intimate than usual. "You've been kind of distant lately," Sophia said, her voice gentle. "Is everything okay?" I looked at her, unsure of what to say. I couldn't lie, but I didn't know if I was ready to face the truth, either the truth that I was feeling things for her, things I shouldn't be feeling. "Yeah, I've just been busy," I said, trying to brush it off. She didn't seem convinced. "Marcus, if something's on your mind, you can talk to me. I'm not going to judge you. I just want you to know that you can trust me." Her hand rested gently on the table, closer to mine than I was comfortable with, but somehow I didn't pull away. I could feel the heat rising in my chest. "I don't know, Sophia," I said, looking away. All of this, it's confusing. I don't know what to think anymore." "Hey," she said, her tone softening. "It's okay to be confused. It's okay to not have all the answers right now, but you don't have to go through it alone. I'm here for you, Marcus." Her words were comforting, and for a moment, I forgot all about the guilt that had been eating at me. I just wanted to be with her, to let myself feel the connection that was undeniable. "I don't want to hurt anyone," I said finally, looking back at her. "I don't want to hurt my mom. I don't want this to mess things up." Sophia's expression softened, and she leaned in closer. "I understand, but this isn't about anyone else, Marcus. It's about you and me. If you want this, then we should let ourselves have it. We're adults, and we deserve to be happy." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to pull away, to remind myself that this was wrong, that nothing good could come from it. But another part of me, one that had been building inside me since that first night, wanted to take the leap, to see where this could go. "Do you really think this could work?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Sophia smiled, her eyes locking onto mine. "I think we owe it to ourselves to find out." In that moment, something inside me shifted. The logical part of my brain screamed that this was a mistake, that I was crossing a line I couldn't come back. from, but my heart was telling me to take a chance, to trust her, to trust what I was feeling. I took a deep breath, and before I could second guess myself, I reached for her hand. The moment our fingers touched, the world seemed to stop. There was no going back now. I think I want to see where this goes, I said, my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside me. Sophia smiled a genuine, knowing smile and squeezed my hand. Me too. And just like that, we crossed the line. A few weeks had passed since Sophia and I made the decision to explore what was happening between us. In some ways, things felt almost normal when we were together. It felt right, but in other ways, it was an overwhelming secret that weighed heavily on me. We were living in two worlds, one where we could be honest with each other, and the other where we had to hide everything from my mom and the people who knew us. The guilt was suffocating, and it was getting harder to pretend like nothing was wrong. I had been careful about how we acted around my mom. There were moments when I felt like I was walking a tightrope, trying to balance my feelings for Sophia with the reality of what it would mean if anyone found out. We tried to keep things subtle, stealing moments when my mom wasn't around, having whispered conversations when we thought no one would hear. But the more we hid, the more the weight of it all seemed to grow. One evening, everything came to a head. My mom had invited Sophia over for dinner, as she often did, and as usual, Sophia and I played our parts, acting like nothing was different between us. But the tension was palpable. I could feel the strain in the air, the unspoken understanding that we couldn't keep pretending forever. I knew that one day, someone was going to find out, and when that happened, it would change everything. That night, after dinner, my mom left to run an errand. I was cleaning up the kitchen when Sophia came in, standing in the doorway with that look in her eyes, confident, but also filled with something I couldn't quite place. It was the look of someone who knew things had gone too far, someone who was ready to face the consequences. Marcus, we need to talk, Sophia said quietly, her voice steady but serious. I felt a knot form in my stomach. What's wrong? She stepped closer, her eyes softening as she reached for my hand. I think we both know this can't go on like this. It's been hard, hasn't it? Hiding, pretending, living in this constant state of uncertainty. And I know you're feeling the guilt, I can see it. I didn't say anything at first. The words I needed to say were stuck in my throat, tangled up with the fear of what might happen if I voiced them out loud. Sophia, I don't want to hurt anyone, I finally managed to say, especially not my mom. This is wrong, and I know it, but I don't know how to end it without tearing everything apart. Sophia nodded, her expression soft but resolute. I know, and I don't want to hurt anyone either, but I can't keep pretending that what we have isn't real. I've never felt this way before, Marcus, and I know you feel the same, but we both have to make a choice. I swallowed hard, the reality of it all hitting me like a punch to the gut. I could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on me. I loved her, but at what cost? How much was I willing to risk? We can't keep doing this, I said finally, the words feeling like a release. I can't keep living with this secret. It's eating me alive. Sophia's face fell, and for a moment, I thought she might cry. But instead, she stepped closer to me, brushing a tear from my cheek. I understand. I knew this day would come. And as much as I want to be with you, I don't want to destroy your life or your relationship with your mom. I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness wash over me. We were both making the right choice, but it didn't make it any easier. I think we both know it's time to stop, I said, my voice breaking slightly. But I'll never forget what we had, Sophia. You'll always have a special place in my heart. She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes, but she smiled softly, almost sadly. You'll always have a place in mine, Marcus. We stood there for a long moment, just holding each other, not speaking. It was the end of something beautiful, something complicated, and in a way, I was grateful for it. But I knew it would take time to heal from the guilt and the confusion that had come with it. The next day, Sophia didn't show up for our usual catch-up. I didn't hear from her at all, and I knew she was giving me space. A few days later, I saw her at my mom's house, but she didn't look at me the same way. The warmth was gone, replaced by a polite distance that felt even more painful than anything else. We had made the right decision, but it still hurt like hell. Over the next few weeks, things returned to normal. I tried to focus on my life, work, friends, hobbies, but there was a quiet emptiness that I couldn't shake. Sophia and I had been part of something powerful, something that felt real. But in the end, the consequences of what we'd done had forced us to walk away. My mom never found out, and in a way, I think I was relieved. The last thing I wanted was to hurt her, to cause her any pain. But deep down, I also knew that there would always be a part of me that wondered what could have been if we hadn't stopped. In the end, I learned a lot from the experience. I learned that sometimes, even the most beautiful moments have to come to an end, and sometimes doing the right thing doesn't always feel good. But I also learned that we're all human. We make mistakes, we make choices, and we live with them. And while I would never forget what happened between Sophia and me, I also knew that life had to go on.